So good to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, for whoever is watching this or watching the replay, um, I am starting this series of interviews with amazing women, connecting with busy moms who wanted more in their life, said yes to their dreams, and then also get them to share, their struggles, what they've gone through, maybe what their role their family has played, their triumphs, to making their dreams and realities come true. And really wanting to spread the word that it is possible to be a busy mom, live with passion and purpose, and have it all. So, with that, we have an amazing, amazing guest today. And I'm so happy to have you. It's been so long since we've seen each other.
I know, it's been months and months.
It has, it's flown by. So I thought we would start off by you kind of introducing yourself and going through your journey, and then we'll kind of go through some questions.
Okay, cool. My name's Danielle Calcara. I am 33 years old. I'm a mom of one, a little girl. She's going to be 4 in a couple months. And yeah, my career journey has been a little bit of I don't know, like adventurous one a little bit. I just launched my own fashion, beauty, and lifestyling company called Aesthetically Obsessed last June. So so kind of like a backstory. I started off as a hairstylist. After high school, I graduated and went directly to cosmetology school and started as a hairstylist, and I've still licensed to this day for 15 years now. And then back in 2018, when I was about to have my daughter, I quit working in the salon, and I had decided right before that I wanted to go back to college for fashion because I have always loved it. And so, so I quit working in a salon full time, became a mom, was trying to get through college, did all of that. And then I graduated with my bachelor's in fashion merchandising and worked as a merchandiser for about 7 months here in St. Louis. But I just realized, like, oh man, it was just so administrative. And I love being with people and building confidence. That was one of my favorite things about doing hair and working with clients in that capacity. And so I was like, okay, what can I do with all of my background in beauty and cosmetology, but then also this new degree that I just had gotten. So I just decided to launch my own business, and I've been doing it for over a year now. And then I'm kind of like, there's little other projects that are linked to my business that I am starting, to build on. So yeah, it's really cool. And that's just like a little bit of it's a really long story trying to shove it into one small story.
So then, okay, let's go into a few questions. Maybe it'll kind of help dissect it a little bit. So when you were kind of going through those different steps, right? Did you have one like aha moment, or were there kind of along the ways that helped build up to you saying, you know what, I'm going to quit this, kind of what people would mostly call kind of your traditional, right? You have a traditional job, to I'm going to start something of my own. So did you have kind of like an aha moment that said, yes, I'm going to take that leap of faith, or were there kind of aha moments throughout that kind of led up to it?
Well, I kind of think for me, my first aha moment was when I was back in 2013 when I was doing hair still full time. I had done a lot of hair for fashion shows throughout my career. And so I always loved that part of it. And it was just exciting and fun, and like being behind the scenes and in the background. I just like loved that. And then I've always obviously loved fashion. But when I went to, I had the opportunity to go do hair for a couple of shows in New York Fashion Week. And so that was my first time going to New York and kind of seeing it in that capacity. And it like completely changed my whole like trajectory for my life, I feel. And then I just remember like working in a salon and thinking like, man, I just feel like there's so much more. And I just know there's so much more that I like have to give to something that's not this. And it took me a long time to get to that point. And I think sometimes you have to kind of get into like a place where you're just really like, okay, at least for me, I'm like, I have to be so sure that I'm so unhappy in something and to make the decision to move into the next phase. Because I let be absolutely sure. So it's like I gave it my all, and I'm like, I just know there's so much more. So I was never one of those people that thought I would like I was good enough for college for some reason. And then when I was started thinking about it, I'm like, man, like if I went back to college, like I'd have to go for something that I absolutely loved. I couldn't just go just to go because for me, there's like no point in doing something like that. And um, so I think the aha moment initially was like going to New York for the first time and seeing like, oh my gosh, it's just such a different, there's so much different stuff in the world to like see and learn and do. And so that was like the first one. And then going through college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the degree. I just was like, I just knew I loved fashion. I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. And then I'm like, well, merchandising, I'll do that. You know, I thought I'd be good at that. And I did it and it was fine. But I just missed I guess the connection, the human connection and the impact that I can have on people's lives. Like I missed that so much too. And so I'm like, man, I just can't sit behind a computer all day, every day. Like there's so much more. So I remember being in a meeting um, with one of my bosses, and she had said something like, oh, like you have really good taste or something to that effect. And I was like, well, I'm kind of, like aesthetically obsessed. And then that's kind of how the name for my business just came to me. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, like I really do have some like obsessive compulsive tendencies. And then I always have loved anything that has to do with like fashion, beauty, anything aesthetic, like good smells, beautiful decor, like anything aesthetically pleasing is always something I've like my brain is just like clings to those things. And so whenever that had clicked, and then I realized how much I wasn't wanting to work in that position anymore, I'm like, okay, what could I do? And then I came up with this idea for a business. And then the name I just kept going back to the name, aesthetically obsessed. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. I'm like, can people spell aesthetically? Like, I don't know, but that's like one of the first things everyone's like, how do you spell aesthetically? And I'm like, I have to have the name. I don't care. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so there was like a few aha moments along the way, I think.
Yeah. And something that you said around, kind of build to, you need to give everything your all before making that decision. And I run into a lot of people who are scared, right? They're scared to get out of their comfort zone. They're scared to try something new. Can you talk a little bit about that, right? Because obviously you took a big leap, got out of your comfort zone to do something that you felt so passionate about. And I think people stop, even small things to large things, people stop because of fear, because of getting out of their comfort zone. And I think that's huge because then that's something that you did. You kind of took that leap and said, okay, you know what, even though I gave it my all, you still took that leap of, I'm getting out of my comfort zone and doing something, who knows what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I almost feel like if you are so passionate about something and you know what you can bring to the table, as long as you just keep going and keep going and keep going, like I feel like some type of success will inevitably kick in. Like there's a momentum that you build, but I think sometimes the fear part comes from like, okay, I'm going to have to like do all of these like million little steps to add up to one like next step to the next stepping stone. And I think sometimes like just the idea of having to like tackle all of that even to get to a place where your business is making money, or, you know, there's like a million things. But yeah, fear definitely plays a big part in a lot of people not going for their dreams or something that they love and are passionate about. But I feel like when you find your purpose in life and you can like link that with like, okay, how can I like take care of my family with this passion and purpose that I have? Like, it's such a beautiful like marrying of the two things, because then you feel like, you know, that saying, like, if when you love what you do, it's like you don't work a day in your life. Like, that's the best part, you know?
Yep. No, absolutely. So what would you say has been your greatest challenge so far?
Oh, I think honestly, juggling all the different aspects of a business, like when you start it all on your own, you know, like from doing the marketing and the bookkeeping and the social media and all of that, it's like a lot.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I wish I could just do like just the stuff that I am the most passionate about, which is styling, you know, in all capacities, whether it's photo shoots or personal with clients and or whatever, or fashion shows. It's a lot, and I wish I could do that just now. But when you're building and starting, you have to do it all by yourself. So I think just like trying to tackle all of the other areas of running a business that like aren't my passion. Like, I'm not passionate
Yeah.
about the bookkeeping, you know?
Right. Right. I don't know anybody who is.
But yeah, but it's like I got to do what I got to do. So I think that's probably the most challenging, is trying to stay on task for like the marketing and all of that stuff, when I'm like, no, I just want to like, you know, make people feel pretty all day.
Right. So what advice would you give for somebody? Because that is true. I mean, when you're starting your own business, there's a lot of little things that you have to do and you have to put in order, right, to make it successful besides the passionate part.
Yeah. Lots of list making. I make tons and tons of lists in Excel spreadsheets. So
Love Excel.
if you don't like Excel and you want to have a business, you better get to like it. Yeah, I don't know, just lots of lists, calendars, and I think just like creating like a disciplined routine for yourself, because I think sometimes, which I am guilty of this too, it's like, oh, like you know, I have a day where I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a work on my computer day with all these things. But then you're like, oh, but I could like clean my house, or I could like do laundry. So it's just, I think like making sure you're like, okay, no, like this time from to this time, I'm gonna, you know, work on X, Y, and Z. And then from this time to this time, I'm gonna finish whatever else. So I think just like being your own boss, but actually being your own boss, you know?
Treating it like a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I think that's key, right? Because when you're going into a business and you work for somebody else, you are kept accountable that way. Or
Mm-hmm.
just like you said, when you have your own business, you have nobody keeping you accountable.
Right,
So
but yourself.
yep, that is huge for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. What surprised you the most in your journey?
Um, oh, probably. I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm surprised every day.
Well, hopefully those are good surprises then.
Yeah, probably. Oh gosh. Well, honestly, when I first started, I had some clients back, you know, still from doing hair for so many years, that were like, "Oh, like I'd love for you to do my hair," but like the fashion aspect, like wanting that to be more of my main focus, and growing my clientele in that way, based around styling and closets and all of that. I'm like, okay, how am I going to get my first client? Like, I literally had no clue, but I just knew in my heart, I'm like, I know what I'm bringing to the table, and like the value and service that I can provide and give, and like how I can make people feel by their experience with me. And so I think just launching and then getting a first client and then getting like a referral and then getting another referral and then another referral, and just how quickly that kind of momentum built up, that was surprising, because when I first launched, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get a client. I just knew I'd get one somehow, you know? And so I think that was surprising to me. But then now looking back, I'm like, it's not surprising, because I think with anyone in life, when you have something that means so much to you and you give it your all to like impact people's lives for the better, there's just something magical and special, and it kind of like takes a life of its own, you know?
Yep, absolutely. It's kind of like what you put out in the universe, you get back, right? And you're putting out that servant heart, making people feel nice, and you get that back for sure. Let's take a little bit of a turn.
Okay.
And talk about family.
Okay.
So you're a single mother.
I am.
So tell me a little bit about your daughter and how she's kind of played a role in this whole journey with you.
Oh, wow. So my daughter, her name's Davina.
She's adorable, by the way.
Thanks. She's such a sass. She just started preschool for the first time in August last month. So yeah, she's like amazing and so smart and so cool and hilarious. And I feel like once I had her, my life completely changed in so many ways. And she teaches me as much as like we're supposed to teach them, they teach us. And so I feel like I am a completely different person, woman, everything since I've had her. And the decisions that I make in my life now that I have this little, I think too, especially like since she's a girl, I see like things from my life that I'm like, okay, like this is really important that I want to teach her and make her strong and know that she's worthy and valuable and smart and all of these things. But when I started, when I went back to college, I found out I was expecting her like I think it was like one term in to college. And so, and I remember being like, okay, like I'm going to have her here and then I'll have like 2 more terms and then I'll be graduated. And, or no, was it 3 more terms? No, it was like I think it was 3 or 4. But, anyways, I had her, I was like in the hospital room, like writing a paper on my laptop, like sitting on one of those birthing balls, like that you like roll your hips on. And I was like, I've got to get this paper in, and my school was so great, like during all of that. But yeah, like every decision I make, like from when I was in school to now, it's because I want to teach her, like, you can do anything. Like I was, so pregnant and like trying to like get through school and I like waddling in and out of classes and like, oh my gosh. And then I had her and I did school from home for like 2 terms before I went back. And I just remember like going in, it was like my first time going back to school after I'd had her like actually in the building. And I had like my backpack and my cooler because I was breastfeeding and like my pump bag and like the whole thing.
Yep.
And like telling all my teachers like, okay, because there was only like a short window between class to class. And I'm like, I'm going to have to like dip out of here like 10 to 15 minutes early so I could make sure I had enough pumping time before I went to the next class. And like, I remember doing like a fashion show and it was my first fashion show that I had worked like from having Davina, and I was still in school. So I was interning, and I remember it was at some really cool like event space that had a bar. And I was like, oh my gosh, my milk isn't going to stay cold enough in the cooler. And so I had to like ask the bartender to like put it in put my cooler in their beer cooler to like, it was just like the funniest thing. But it's like, you really can do it all. Like you just have to figure out like how to do it, and not everyone's journey like looks the same. I know I kind of got off on a tangent, but from your original question, but yeah, I mean, everything I do is I think about her, and I just want to make her so proud. And so when I, graduated college, like she was there, and I got to like hold her on my hip, and one of my goals was like graduating with straight A's, and I did. And so I was really proud of that, so there's like so many things I think women are like, oh, I don't know how people do it. And it's like, you just figure it out. And I think especially becoming a mother, like that has given me so much like more grit that I ever thought I had before.
Yes,
And
I
so
would agree.
a lot of things that like before I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this or that, like just having her, and I'm like, well, I don't know, some things I don't know if I can do it, but it's better to try than not try. That's what I want to teach her in life, so like I have to like lead by example. If I want her to like go after things in her life that she's passionate about, like I have to do the same thing.
That's awesome. That is amazing. I love that. So I know at least a lot of the moms, and I am totally guilty of this, mom guilt in making decisions and doing things, and even, doing things for yourself or making some of those decisions. Have you ever had that? Do you have it? How do you deal with it?
Oh my gosh, I have it all the time.
Right? It's horrible.
Yes, especially coming from a place like, so my mom was always like a stay-at-home mom, and like the best mom in the entire world. Like she's the best. I'm so grateful like that she's my mom. And so I got so much love and attention, and it's so amazing. And so then I'm like juggling. It's kind of hard when you're like, oh my gosh, like you love being a mother, but then you also have like a career that you love so much. So like juggling both of those things. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, am I giving too much to one and not the other? And it's a really hard like balance sometimes. But I have like the most amazing therapist, and she is like, Danielle, like, when they say on airplanes, like, put your mask on, like they tell you to put your mask on first before. And I'm like,
Yep.
yes, that makes so much sense. Like you have to take care of yourself, or like you can't pour from an empty glass. Like it makes total sense, and I can tell I'm a better mother when I'm doing things that I'm passionate about, like my career I'm very passionate about, but also like taking care of myself. So I feel like sometimes as moms, we think like, oh my gosh, we have to do everything for our kids, which we do, but we also have to do everything for ourselves, because no one else is going to do that for us. Like we have to take care of us. And then I feel like by taking care of ourselves, we're teaching our children that it's okay for them to take care of themselves.
Yes. No, that is so true. And it's so hard. It's so true, but it's so hard. And I never realized that until becoming a mother.
Same. I know. Well, especially like if you have a mother that's so selfless, which is so wonderful, but it's like, especially in this day and age, I'm like, it's just not, it's not sustainable. Just literally like not taking care of you. You have to take care of you so you can take care of them as the best,
Yeah. So last question for you, and I think you kind of alluded to it a couple of times, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
Okay.
So what advice would you give your younger self? If you were to go back 10 years, 15 years, what advice would you give yourself?
Man, I feel like so much. Wouldn't we all?
Right?
Oh, man. It's so funny, like, when people say, like, oh, the older you get so much more, like, wisdom. And I'm like, it's so true. It's so true. And I'm not even there. Like, I'm not even at the, we're never there. I think that's one of the coolest things about life that I'm learning is, like, life is an ever changing, ever evolving thing that we're like constantly learning about, like external, but also internal, like we're changing all the time. But yeah, I I would want to tell her to like believe in herself more and not let other people dictate like what like her worth. Like I'm talking in like whatever is that third person, her worth, like I would
Yep.
tell myself like, yo, like you're enough, you're smart enough, you're wonderful, you can do anything. And even though like I have wonderful people in my life who have told me that, but I've also had people in my life who haven't told me that. So I think sometimes it's easier to let like negative talk sink in more than like positive talk from
Yeah.
people. So I would say, yeah, to like believe in myself because it's so important that we give that to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that internal validation.
No, absolutely. I love that. And I think what I find also interesting is that somebody doesn't have to go through a traumatic event to lose confidence, to lose faith, to, you know, have all these fears, right? We don't need these big, huge traumatic events. And so when you start, and like you're doing with your daughter right now, trying to reinforce all of these positive things, right? Because who knows, as we get older, the world tears us down. And it doesn't have to be a big traumatic event, but it does, right? There's just little things that add up that people don't think about. And then you kind of get to a point where it's like, I've just spent all this time and I'm not happy, right? And so I think that's very important for sure.
I think, yeah, too, like just teaching our kids to be happy and be
Yeah.
kind, it's like, I mean, obviously everyone has to like make money to live and survive and all of these things, but like having passion and purpose and happiness, like all of that comes from within. And I think like teaching our kids like not always striving for like external validation, like we need to like be proud of ourselves and like pump ourselves up, like it's so important. Um, because there's always going to be people who like don't like what we're doing or don't like what we're selling or whatever, but it's like if you know in your heart that like you're giving it your all and all of that stuff, like I think the internal love and validation, all of that is like super important.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being open and honest with everybody today and spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. And it's really great to see you.
Oh my gosh, so good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely. Hopefully we can maybe do this again sometime.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, bye.